In 2017 and 2019 respectively, according to the Boston University Press and Washington Examiner, Ben Shapiro and Milo Yiannopoulos were met by protest and heckler. In 2017 and 2019 respectively, according to the Boston University Press and Washington Examiner, Ben Shapiro and Milo Yiannopoulos were met by protesters and hecklers due to their views that called for the censorship of their voice on an academic setting. The question still stands today. Should people who have bigoted views be allowed to exhibit free speech by showing that these views, especially in a private setting such as a school? Well, this is obviously a very hot topic, as in the news lately, questions about free speech have been used as people get fired for bigoted views from their jobs. People get protested, such as Milo and Ben, and people get banned from social media platforms, such as Donald Trump. So how free is free speech? Well, today I'll be discussing that. I'll talk about the problems that a lack of free speech brings, the causes of a lack of free speech, and solutions to how we can help that. In my opinion, free speech is important as long as no one is harmed and it does not violate the Constitution. So first I'll talk about the problems associated with a lack of free speech. The first problem is that it's hard to define, so it's hard to completely administer. According to Stephen Wormiel for the American Bar Association in 2016, free speech is so hard to define that even hate speech is technically allowed because it is technically counted as free speech. This is shown in the case of Texas versus Johnson in 1989, where it was decided that a man was allowed to burn the American flag in Denver because it was part of his freedom of expression. Further, the problem with the lack of free speech is that it infringes on Constitution-given rights. In the case of Tinker versus Des Moines, 2 children of the Tinker last name were decided to be able to have freedom of expression with their armbands calling for peace in the Vietnam War because of the Constitution's First Amendment. This has been a precedent for further cases that show that violations of free speech are violations of the First Amendment. Some causes of this are paranoia. For CBS, Rebecca Boone wrote in March 2023 that both sides of the political equation are completely paranoid of the other, causing troublesome infringements of free speech to occur from both sides. There's a hotline in Washington where people can report bigoted opinions. Well, in my personal opinion, I think that hate speech is something that is problematic. It does seem dubious to have a hotline where you can talk about your neighbors and attempt to get them arrested for such a thing from a legal standpoint. Further, on the opposite side of the spectrum, both book and drag bans are sweeping the nation, although those violate freedom of speech and freedom of expression. The third cause of this widespread question of free speech is a desire for freedom. People will continually debate if free speech and freedom of happiness are able to be completely balanced. While one side of this balance, freedom, is very important, so is the freedom of those around us. According to the Constitution, all American citizens have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this freedom of speech can only go so far as to coexist with this freedom of happiness, which I will discuss as we go on to talk about some solutions for this confusing conundrum. Some solutions for this problem are to A. Have censorship only in private settings. Private settings have a higher ability, according to this balance I just discussed, to upkeep the freedom of happiness and contentment and safety as more important than freedom of speech. Therefore, private institutions have a right to censor some things more than others if they have a good cause for that, such as bigoted speech. Further, I think another solution is to judge these situations based on the Constitution. As I just said, we need to make sure to think about what does and doesn't infringe on the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And last, I think these free speech questions need to take into account the idea of clear and present danger, as brought up in the 1919 Schenck versus U.S. case, which Richard Parker discusses for MTSU. The clear and present danger test shows if free speech is more important than happiness based on whether or not clear danger is soon to come. Overall, today, I hope that I've been able to convince you about how important free speech is and how bad it is when we don't abide by it, but also how that balance exists and why in some cases one side of the balance is more important than others. Obviously, Ben Shapiro and Milo Yiannopoulos were pretty controversial. However, I think it can be assumed that it's a very subjective and shaky ground to stand on when looking at situations like this. While the two schools were private institutions, it does seem like there was some kind of censorship going on. And so I implore you to ask yourselves what you think. I hope that free speech continues to intrigue you and to bring about some thoughtfulness into your life. Thank you for your time.